Hello everyone. My name is Tanisha Hasbury. I'm a Troy University student. My major is interdisciplinary studies with a concentration of global marketing. The class that we're taking is a leadership class, and we're talking about a movie called Crimson Tide. Has anyone ever seen this movie? I really didn't think it would be this good until I started watching it, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a great movie. Leadership skills that I never would thought that would be in all the detail scenes, perfect. I understand where they're coming from. So we're gonna talk about some of the scenes that really stuck out to me in my professional opinion. Let's talk about the missile scene. So we have Denzel Washington, which is Lieutenant Hunter. He was actually working with Gene Hackman, okay? He's captain. So with that being said, Eugene authoritative leadership skills to me was more demanding. So instead of him just saying what I think y'all should do, he would say, no, you do this way. You launch this missile. Even in the midst of not really rationally thinking about the ramifications of it or the consequences, he was like, do as I say. It was more like he was egotistical. But Denzel, from my opinion, he was more like a servant leader. He was more like thinking about things, critical thinking, following the chain of command, as most leaders should. And Dr. Klein, one of his famous sayings in leadership is, let's be cautious of others. Let's follow the chain of command. Let's be ethical. Denzel Washington had a lot of those leaderships. And he also thought about a team. He was a team player. He didn't just want to do things because, Gene Hackman told him to. And even though they got into arguments, he could have gotten mad and done things that were wrong, but he said, no, we're going to do it the right way. We're going to wait on a second signal. So that to me, if it was a situation where I had to do, I would follow the servant leadership role, because that role is all about ethics. It's about clear communication. It's about understanding the cause of what you're doing and building team morale. All of the team members that were there, they could witness the actual purpose of what Denzel Washington was trying to do in this movie. And not so that watching him, he was a leader and he led with purpose. And even though Gene Hackman was an authoritative, he also was learning things from Denzel in hindsight to teach him how to be a better leader. And with that being said, those are some of the great attributes that I learned from the movie. And secondly, I wanted to add that in a workplace, when you're working, you can take a lot of those skills and utilize that. The servant leadership goes all the way. It goes to hear from anywhere you want to take it. You can have empathy for others. And some of the qualities that Denzel Washington had, even in the scene that was saddest to me, was the missile, sealing the missile with all the soldiers in there, like they were dying. And his main purpose was seal the ship. Because if we don't seal the ship, everyone is going to die. And I know that was a hard call for him, but that was chain of command. And we have to give respect to that. We tend to think about things like that. What if he would have tried to wait till the other people came back on the ship? Then the whole ship would have sunken and nobody would be alive. So that was, even though that was a hard choice, he did that with dignity. He did it with clear communication, and he thought about everybody on the ship. That was a great conscious decision because it saved a lot of people. And on the other hand, how would we relate that as well? We would relate those same contributions to our real life working situations. And even though Eugene was an authoritative leader, he has to understand that it's not about ego. It's not about telling somebody, do as I say, not as I do, or you're going to do this, or you're going to get in trouble. It's about also listening and being a rational person in the midst of all situations. That was a critical situation. And had it not been for Hunter, Bama, the whole Navy ship, it would have been in a worse situation. So I gathered a lot of information from that, and I'm here today to talk about the greatness of that movie. And if I had to implement any of that into real life situations as me being a broker, if I were to have a situation to happen that was critical, I would be that servant leader. I would offer EI, which is emotional intelligence. I would do what Denzel did, follow the chain of command. We will not ever get to the top if we're bickering. We have to come together as a unit to understand one another. We can be active listeners like Dr. Klein asked us to be in servant leadership. We have to listen to get the other parties, get their thought process. That's what a real servant leader does. And I would implement that into everyday aspects of my business because that's true leadership. I would be open to gathering the co-workers together for team building so that we can learn in those ways. Whether it be, team building, communication, it's just so many different things that we can do for that. But the most important part is knowing to put yourself last and actually allow someone else to hear them out and be communicating and be active listeners and offer empathy when needed and know that you have to be accountable for your actions. And that is a major attribute of leadership, is being accountable. Denzel was very accountable for what he did. And you can tell in some of the scenes, he made a lot of hard decisions, but that's what comes with accountability as a real leader. And Gene Hackman told him that if you ever want your own boat, you're going to have to make those choices. That was one of the first things he told Hunter in the movie, and he did that. He was actually actively listening. If you pay attention, Hunter was listening to Ramsey because as he was talking, he was listening. He had the cigar and he was just soaking it in. That was an active listening. That's part of the servant leadership. Yes, that's part of it. He wasn't talking, he was listening. And for everybody that saw that, that is a major concept of being a servant leader. And I really love the movie. There's so much that I learned from it. And as you're busy in your everyday workspaces, you're wearing multiple hats. You may be wearing this hat. You may be a builder. You may be wearing a construction hat. But guess what? We can take those skills of servant leadership and we can become a better community. We can lead with purpose. We can become active listeners. We can be accountable for everything that we do far as our leadership goes. We can communicate effectively. We can do all of that and we can build together rather than separate. And those are my final conclusions for the movie Crimson Tide. I thank y'all. Signing off, Tanisha.